Welcome folks, I hope you can hear me today over the fan. The fan is entirely necessary because if you're watching from anywhere outside of the UK, maybe you don't realise, but we're in the middle of a heat wave and it's ridiculous right now. So I've got the fan on today, I hope you don't mind, I hope you can hear me. And already I can see a comment about the Steve Vai hair. Yeah, I'm going to accept it today, I'm going to go with that. Anything to get my hair out my face and just to concentrate on what I'm doing a little bit more is good. So, here we go. Welcome to another live Q&A. This is number 4. Thank you once again for joining. To anyone who's viewed the previous 3 videos, you'll probably know the gist of what this is about. I'm going to try and answer your questions as we go, so please fire a question into the live chat and I will do my best to get on it as quickly as I possibly can. And I'm also going to use this opportunity to show you some cool bits of gear. Now today I'm doing it a little bit differently than I did last week. Last week was kind of like a 3 guitar shootout, like a buyer's guide type of thing. I've decided to just go really simple for today. It's still going to be a 3 guitar day, and I'm going to show you 3 really cool instruments, starting with this really nice. I'm going to just get a bit closer actually to show you, because I don't think you can quite see how glorious this is from back there. Let me also just make sure I've got the camera angle right. So I'm starting out with this PRS Custom 24. This is one of the new 35th anniversary guitars, and I have featured these quite a bit on the channel, but just look at this thing. It's really mad. And so for anyone who doesn't know, PRS are celebrating the 35th anniversary of this guitar, the Custom 24. And what can I say? It's the best Custom 24 they've ever made, in my opinion. They've kind of taken some design ideas from the 2408, which was a kind of custom guitar that they used to do. I think they still do it in fact, but it basically was a custom 24 that had, as the name would suggest, 24 frets and 8 different tones, and that's where these mini toggles come in. So rather than the old 5-way blade switch, you've now got a 3-way pickup switch and 2 coil splits for each pickup, and that means that you get 8 different combinations of tones, and it just means that this guitar is even more versatile than before. By the way, I'm sure maybe you're wondering, a couple of comments have already come in about how good the setup sounds today, which I appreciate. There's a good reason for that. I've decided to go for a bit of a higher gain thing today. You're going to get the theme of this video as we go. It's a little bit more a shred thing today. I'm using a Soldano SLO 100. So I'm going in with a big boy amp, with a big boy guitar, and straight away, let me just play a little bit more on the lead channel, and you'll hear why this amp is so highly revered and why these guitars are so highly revered too. So I'm going to show you just how versatile these guitars are. In case you don't know and you think Custom 24s are all about high gain stuff, they do that very well. But what they also do is, especially utilising these coil splits, they do this. And I've actually set up the clean channel of the amp, the normal channel, in the crunch mode. So it is a little bit driven, but you'll hear the dynamics of this thing come into play. Let me just get it in tune really quick. If you hear any tuning issues today, I can guarantee you it's because of the heat in this It's a little sweat box. So forgive me that at least. Please forgive me some tuning issues and the fan, but you know, I'm going to do my best for you anyway. Right. Back on it, here we go. Oh yeah, what a sound. So the marriage of a PRS with, I think, any kind of high gain amp has long been established as one of the go-tos of more contemporary guitar sounds. But as you'll have heard there, just with I was using the crunch mode on the Soldano, this guitar does a really convincing sort of mid-gain classic rock crunch. And I really love that you can just notch one pickup into single coil mode and get more of that sort of quacky, single coil clarity. I'm going to try my best today to talk about the whole different range of tones, cleaner tones as well as high gain tones, but kicking onto the lead channel of a Soldano is literally like, the only thing I can equate it to is like the feeling of being in a very, very, very fast car and putting your foot down on the throttle. Like, it's just, you just want to do it all the time. It's so satisfying to kick on that overdrive channel. It's wicked. I mean, the guitar has a lot to do with this as well. It's just such an articulate sounding amplifier and it's such an articulate sounding guitar. So, I'm sure most people out there will have heard Custom 24 before, but in case you haven't, I always just like to sort of bring it to the forefront and just make people aware of the fact that it is incredibly versatile. and it does sound really, really great. And 35 years of making it, they've obviously perfected the formula. They've revised the pickups in this latest edition as well. These are the 8515 pickups, but they've undergone the, what's it called? TCI treatment, tuned capacitance and inductance on these guitars now. So they've revised the voicing of the pickups. I believe they've revised the tuners, they've revised the bridge, they've revised several different things on these new anniversary guitars, and it just makes them exceptional. So yeah, that's not a bad way to start this video. I'm going to come on to the other guitars I'm going to feature today in a moment, but before I do that, as always, I want to make sure I'm up to date with your questions and queries. So bear with me 1 second while I just get technical and read out some of your questions so I can do my best to keep up with it. Right, so, okay, a few greetings here. Greetings from Detroit, McNasty, hello to you. What else have we got? Okay, Mark Cadistis asks, if you only have a 22 fret or a 24 fret guitar? It's an interesting question. So obviously it depends on your needs, your musical needs. To me, the 24 fret guitars like this one, for example, they have a unique tone with the neck pickup because, I'm sure you know this, but because there's an extra 2 frets, the neck pickup gets shifted towards the bridge slightly. So what that means is that the neck pickup has more of a nasal kind of mid-rangey bright quality because it's closer to the bridge. So let me show you what that sounds like. And I actually really like that for lead voicings, because it pushes out the guitar's frequency range in a slightly different way. That suits some people. It doesn't, however, work for some styles where you need that real big, thick, warm neck pickup sound. You can approximate it by just rolling the tone down a little bit, but that's always the advantage of a 22 fret guitar with 2 humbuckers anyway, is that because the pickup is closer to the neck, it's a little bit warmer sounding. It doesn't have quite as much of that vocal mid-range. Practicality aside though, of course you can do more with a 24 fret instrument, but tonally I think there's a reason most people like the 22 fret traditional approach. And you are seeing a lot of 24 fret guitars nowadays, and they are great. They do actually serve a really good purpose and they have that unique tone to them, like I say. But if you're asking me personally, I'd always take a 22 fret guitar, and there is a custom 22 of course, but just because of that neck pickup thing. You either love this sound or you don't. I actually do really like this sound, but if I could only have one guitar, which is what you asked, it's 22 frets for me. But hopefully you can see that there's a reason to have both. Okay. Andy Vincent says, love your videos, thank you. Sorry if this has been answered, but what is your #1 personal guitar? Very good question. I would actually direct you, rather than answering that in this video, you can check out my own YouTube channel, which I'll link in the description below after this. Jack Griffiths Music. I do a ton of videos where I talk about that kind of stuff, personal, subjective stuff. So hope you don't mind me deflecting your question there, Andy. But I would say head to my channel and I'll do my best to answer that question. It's probably pretty obvious from the video that will be going up shortly, in fact. So check out my channel for that. Okay, AJ Martin says, aside from the CE, are there any other PRS dual humbucker guitars that have satin or unfinished necks? That's a good question. You do see the odd one, like for example, we've just taken in some new CE 24s, but you do see the odd guitar from them with a satin neck, though usually they're all about the glossy neck. It's just part of the PRS thing. Off the top of my head, I think you've pretty much outlined it. The CEs, which are the bolt-on neck guitars that they make in the USA Core Collection. And then there's also, let me think, I think some of the S2s do as well. Some of the S2 guitars, which are still American-made PRS guitars, but they do have on some of those guitars satin finished necks. However, I do think somebody answered your question a little bit lower down to say you can satin up the neck yourself if you feel inclined to do so. I'm not going to encourage you to do that, but if you feel confident, if it's your guitar, why not, if that's what you like. The PRS thing though is about kind of the premium feel and quality, and to most people I think the glossy neck does add that level of premium, you know, and it feels very comfortable. This neck does not hold you back at all. If a gloss neck is done very well, then you don't ever feel the hindrance of the gloss being on the neck. That's at least my experience, so it just adds to the premium nature of the guitar. But to answer your question, I think you are pretty much right. You're pretty much alone with the CEs, apart from the odd, maybe S2 or something like that. Someone actually asked pretty much the same question below. Why are PRS now lacquering basically every neck they do now? Like I say, I think it's more just down to the feel and the premium kind of nature of the finish of the guitar and stuff like that. I could be wrong, but that's just my own 2 cents on that. Hello from New York. Hello. Hello, Jill. How are you doing? Right. Let's see if I've got any more questions here. A lot of talk about the lacquered necks. McNasty asks, how do you feel about a Magnatone Super 59 versus a Marshall Plexi? That's a very good question. Very good question, in fact. I really like that Magnatone amp, and you're going to see a video coming up shortly. No, in fact, the Billy Gibbons video that we did, if you haven't seen that already, Tale of Two Tones recently on the YouTube channel featured that Magnatone amp. That might be the reason you're asking the question, I don't know. It's a fantastic sounding amp, and it's a lot more usable than a Plexi is, because it's got a master volume and it's got 2 different switchable gain settings. However, if you want to sound like a Marshall, just get a Marshall. I mean, you know, there's so many amps on the market that do the Marshall, an approximation of the Marshall tone with their own kind of touch, and that Magnatone, I think, I could be wrong, I think it's got KT66s in it. It might have EL34s, I can't remember accurately, but either way, it's got like a stronger mid-range to it than a Plexi does. It's not as bright, and as I say, it's more usable. But a Plexi is a Plexi, and if you get a good, like the hand-wired 1959 Marshall, or even the 1959X, I think is a great amp, the reissue, they don't sound like a Magnatone, they don't sound like a Friedman, they don't sound like a Sir, whatever it might be, you know, all those brands have their own take. Marshall is a Marshall, and it's for better or worse, you know, it just depends if you like that really aggressive, bright thing. The Magnatone gets you pretty close, but it's a little sweeter and a little bit more refined, which is what most people like. Okay, A Few Good Taters, that's an excellent name. You're very good at playing a lot of different styles and techniques with apparent ease. Thank you very much. Any tips for a practice regimen for someone who would like to expand their playing palette? Once again, I kindly direct you to my own channel, which will be linked in the description below, where I talk about playing and technique and stuff like that. So, you know, check that out if you feel so inclined. I'll do my best to answer whatever questions you have over there. There's a lot of questions or continuing comments about the idea of satining your own neck, which, once again, I'm just going to say I don't endorse you doing that. If you feel you're technically capable of doing it, you know, have a go, but don't do it on a PRS Custom 24, for goodness sake. Okay, let's see what else we got. Okay, this is a good question. Mark Kedistis once again. I love the Telly and Les Paul that are mainstays in Peach's usual video room. Which of that holy trinity is your favourite? So I presume you mean downstairs, where those are all John's guitars. He's got his 64 Telly, 62 Strat, and a 84 Les Paul Custom, which, yeah, they are mainstays in that room just because they're aesthetically wonderful. As you know, I've played that Strat most of the 3, and obviously that's one of John's go-to guitars, and I know that is an excellent guitar. However, personally, to answer your question, I love that Telecaster, and I have played that in a couple of videos. We did one about sort of the idea of relicking guitars, which kind of fits in with this theme about people asking about satining your own neck. I did a video about, you know, the general kind of thoughts and arguments behind relicking or not relicking, and I used that Telecaster in that video. I really love it. It's a great guitar. So to answer your question, if I had to take any one of those, if John would ever let me, I don't know what would, but the Telly would be my first choice. Okay, I'm going to do one more question and then I'm going to get on with the next guitar. Rob Brady says, hi Jack, in your experience, can you hear or feel a difference between a one-piece guitar body and an equivalent 2- or 3-piece model? Goodness me. To be honest with you, I've never thought about that. I've never done a direct comparison between, and you know, it's obviously way more prevalent with acoustics. You kind of can hear a difference, but with electrics anyway, I guess my answer to that, and I can't give a very good answer, I'm afraid, because like I say, I haven't done a conclusive test between a one-piece and a multi-piece guitar body, but you just adapt, you know, I guess they voice the guitar around that maybe with other components like the top, the pickups and whatever, and yeah, I don't think so. I think you just, you know, that guitar's, the rest of what's going on with that guitar is probably what makes it sound the way it does. If you're talking about the aesthetics of the guitar, of course, that's a different issue, but with acoustics more so, with electrics, I don't think, I wouldn't be able to tell you a difference. Anyway, pretty lame answer there, I'm afraid, but that's all I got. Right, so let me just remind you what this guitar sounds like before I move on to some others, because it's an absolute beast, and the other stuff I'm going to show you today is equally beastly, but in a different way. So, I'm going to put this fresh in your ears, and I'm going to move on to guitar number 2. Here we go. Awesome sound. Once again, that neck pickup being a little closer to the bridge adds something to that voicing. Okay, so what I'm going to show you now, and the general theme of this video, I think, is basically what happens if you essentially slash the cost of these guitars in half. So moving there from a PRS guitar that's currently up for around £3,800. Excuse me for this. What I've got here is an ESP E2 Horizon. Granted, it's a very different instrument because it's got a Floyd Rose, but you know, similar kind of body style, double cut thing. And it's about half the price. It's a shade under £2,000. So, you know, a lot of people, I guess, have these questions. What do you pay for when you climb up the ladder in that way and you go from £2,000 to £4,000? And equally, what do you lose out on if you go down from £4,000 to £2,000? And really, it's entirely subjective, of course, but I'm going to do my best to try and articulate some of these thoughts because I think it is a valid question, and you know, I'm going to try and answer it here. Like I say, this isn't a direct comparison. I could have done this with 3 different tiers of PRS guitars, but there's no fun in that, really. So I'm going to show you what this ESP sounds like, and from memory, it sounds pretty darn good, so let me show you that right off the Okay, so there's a little example of how great this guitar sounds. You know, as I say, it's a totally different thing because it's got the Floyd Rose, and actually, you know, to the end of talking about that, you know, somebody asked in a previous video what I think about Floyd Rose guitars. I actually really like them in the right context. You know, I wouldn't use it for like a classic rock thing if I wanted big, open, ringing chords. But what it does very well is it allows you to have a very kind of direct and punchy sound. So you probably have heard that there, in contrast to the PRS guitar. If I show you one more time, on the high gain sound, I'm going to turn the reverb off that I've got, but you know, here's what it sounds like. It's so tight. You know, you normally associate that sound with a fixed bridge thing, but what it means, I think, is that when you get up to higher notes, they sound a little bit crisper. They don't have quite, because you've got this cut-off bridge essentially, it doesn't have quite the same harmonic weight as a fixed bridge does. But what you get out of that is a lot of articulation in the high notes. Yeah, hopefully that's translating over the camera. I don't know if it is, but I always like the solo tone of a Floyd Rose equipped guitar, and the bridge as well. Yeah, you get the idea. So there's a lot of merit to it, and but you know, just talking about the actual guitar itself, I've been really impressed with these E2s that we've had, and this is actually one of my own favourites of the guitars that I've played. And I'd like to issue a little challenge to someone out there. I'd say I'd offer you a prize, but I don't have anything to offer. But if you can tell me what song I played or alluded to in the listing video for this guitar, by the time this video is over, then you'll be very well thought of by me. So if you feel so inclined, open up another tab on your computer, find the listing video for this guitar, and tell me what riff I was playing, and I'll be very impressed if you can pull that out. I also did a little bit of Alice in Chains there without dropping this guitar to drop D, so thanks for that challenge. As Sport asked for some Alice in Chains riffs. You know, you only do your best without dropping to drop D. So you know, a couple of other things about this guitar. It's loaded with Duncan pickups, which is always a win in a guitar like this, I think. They've got, coupled with the voicing of a Floyd Rose, like I said, that direct mid-range. This does it really well, and the pickups do it justice. Let me show you some cleaner sounds on the crunch channel. It does cleans really nicely too. You know, that was using the coil split that's on this push-pull on the tone knob here. So, I kind of want to give a little bit of credit to guitars like this. You know, maybe the guitars with the active pickups in are a little harder to do that dynamic, kind of have that dynamic relationship, but with a guitar like this, and an amp like that, you know, the amp does help. You can go in quite a lot of different directions, and if you just adapt your touch of playing, you know, by playing very gently there, it can just as easily go in the other direction. So yeah, really impressive, these guitars. And once again, I'll just do a little bit of a close-up on the finish, because it is a really nice finish. This is called Black Natural Burst, and I think it's quite tasteful. You know, it's not. You see some of these guitars that maybe, I don't know. I don't want to say that they maybe cheapen the look of them by adding these really garish, over-the-top finishes. Some people love that stuff, but you know, usually if you look at a guitar that's got one of those kind of like psychedelic vomit finishes on it, and then you look at the price and you think, why is that £2,000? I'm sure it's an amazing guitar, but it's just not necessarily, the finish doesn't do it justice. Something like this really, really does. And I actually think pretty much all of the ESP E2 guitars that we've had so far have had that. They've had really nice finishes, you know, tasty and some interesting stuff going on, but nothing too flash, nothing too over the top. And I love this headstock. And I would also say that these necks, which again I can't really show you, they're actually quite chunky and they're glossy and round, and that makes a nice change for shred guitars nowadays. You see a lot of, you know, conversely to the comments that were coming in earlier actually about PRS guitars not having satin necks, you do see a lot of guitars that do from other brands. So, you know, it's nice to see a little bit of variety. This is kind of similar to the PRS in a way, which is why I thought it was a good marriage with that, you know, comparison to the Custom 24. It feels quite a lot like it. It's got a similar kind of neck profile, maybe even a little bit bigger. But obviously it's a totally different guitar genetically and tonally, but there is some crossover there. So, you know, to answer that question initially that I set up of £4,000 versus £2,000, so far, I mean, you know, this is still a handmade guitar. It's made in Japan. Basically in ESP's custom, it's just, you know, it is an ESP guitar, it's just not a custom shop level instrument, if you like. Or this is kind of like the equivalent of a team built Fender custom shop guitar, if you see what I mean. As opposed to the ESP customs, which hopefully we might be getting some of in the future, that are essentially master built, you know, one-off guitars. You know, so the quality is still there. It's just a different formula. But you know, to feel these two guitars, if you didn't know what the prices were, I think you'd struggle to pick between the two as to which was double the cost of the other. You know, maybe certain components give it away, but finishing wise, this is really, really impressive. All the contouring, the beveling, the hardware, you know, Goto tuners, proper Floyd Rose, really nice board as well. I think it's a rosewood board. I don't think it's an ebony board. And that finish, you know, it just makes for a great premium instrument as well. So, you know, maybe you don't have to spend £4,000. It's totally up to you. But there's great options at £2,000 right now. And speaking of, you know, we're heading in the downwards direction. I'm going to show you something else that's half the cost once again. A Charvel. So these instruments have been incredibly popular. I believe they're the San Dimas collection guitars. And it's basically Charvel just saying, okay, we know what you want, you know, because they've had a bit of a, I'd say, checkered history over the past decade or so of putting out some fairly odd guitars. But what these guitars do is really just give you what you want, which is a really nice playing, roasted maple necked, in fact, on these guitars, 24 fret, HSS, or they do some HH guitars. I think they maybe even do some HSH. You know, with a nice 2-post tremolo system, Duncan pickups. It's a shred machine. I realise that I'm sat under lights that don't really show off what this guitar looks like, but hopefully that does. There's shell pink, this particular one. I picked the worst colour for this room. There you go. Really nice roasted maple neck as well, and it's a very slim profile. So before I talk any more about it, here's how it sounds. Okay, as you can probably tell, I was having quite a lot of fun there with this guitar. So as I say, this is actually, round. I don't have the exact price in front of me, but it's in the ballpark of around half the cost of that ESP that I showed you. Is it half the guitar? No way. No way whatsoever. So these guitars are Mexican made, but I would actually say that these are probably considerably more premium than a lot of the Mexican Fenders that you might happen upon. And I guess that's just because of the design ideals of this guitar. It's a lot simpler in nature than, you know, going for a vintage Strat design or something like that. I mean, you know, ironically so, you'd think that those guitars would be simpler, but actually, you know, usually you're going to use these guitars with a bit of gain. They've got really nice premium pickups on there, you know, aftermarket pickups, Duncan pickups. The roasted maple or caramelized maple, as I saw someone corrected in the comments, which is correct, you're right. I believe it's basically the same thing, but Charvel's official line is caramelized, not roasted. Locking tuners as well, and that nice tremolo, and the satin finish. All these things put together. Oh, and you won't be able to see this, but if you're a gigging guitar player, this should be the only reason you need to buy a guitar. See if you can see that. Glow-in-the-dark fret markers. That sounds like a stupid thing, but I've done gigs in the past where I've needed to put glow-in-the-dark tape on things when you've got blackouts on stage and stuff like that. I wish I had one of these guitars back then. This is just, you know, this is a really fun instrument, and for the money that it costs, you could argue, maybe in a different way, excuse me, this gives you as much joy as that PRS does. It's just a different type of guitar. So excuse me. Oh, that's better. So, you know, once again, to the question of how does this compare to a £2,000 guitar? What are you missing out on? It's a little bit more obvious at this point, I think. When you jump from 1,000 to 2,000, you can kind of see, you know, the quality of the finishes, the glossy finishes on that ESP, for example. Some of the hardware, like having the officially branded Floyd Rose bridge and Goto tuners and stuff like that. The quality, though, of actually the way this thing plays is arguably plays better. You know, I don't think this has even been set up since it came out of the box, since it came from the factory. But if you're into that sort of thing, this is a lot easier than those other guitars to do all the widdly stuff on. Once again, and it'll be interesting to note the difference in tone that, as I said earlier on about having humbucker pushed back towards the bridge. Here's the difference with a single coil. It's less so, but you still hear it. I actually think that for some of these guitars that you might want to use with higher gain, having the pickup maybe pushed back a little bit helps keep it more in line with the bridge tone. You know, here's if I play them both back to back. Yeah, maybe they sound a little bit more like they're in the same